an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Hunger Games, Book 3, Mockingjay, Chapter 25, and a live read of 26. For real this time. Live read. In this episode, Rashawn and I are going to talk about a face-to-face convo with President Snow. Real, unexpected, weird encounter. And the implications. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Are you coming to the tree? They strung up a man, they say, who murdered 3. Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where a dead man called out for his love to flee? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you?
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
So this, it's going to be kind of a weird episode because we only read the one chapter, and then the live read. I would like to do the thing that we did before, where we sort of pause every now and then to talk about what I just read.
Okay.
So it'll be just the feel of it will be different because I don't feel like I've ever done a live read where there's only been one chapter read first.
I don't think
but
so.
There's a lot to talk about anyway, and I think that it'll work out for the best. So what did you think of 25 and the it's like recovery of catnip, but like I hesitate to even use the word recovery. Like
recovery seems overly generous.
Yeah.
It is her recuperation, which is
there
slow going.
Mm-hmm.
This was really difficult to read, and it's written in such a way that I felt very disoriented, which I think was the point of it all, right? Mm-hmm, so a lot of when I was reading, I was just like, what is happening? What are we doing? What's going on? You feel like I had taken some morphine, I felt really like I couldn't trust what I was seeing. Was it real? Was I really hearing people speak?
Real or not real?
Yeah, that's right. Ugh.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And then the sort of like, until we get to the conversation with President Snow, the reality that Prim has been killed is kind of just like floating around the outside, Yeah. There's like a mention that Mom is working through her grief. There's Katniss, hallucinating that Prim is trying to hold on to her, but there's not a my sister is dead. You know what I mean? Until a little bit later.
Yeah.
And it just, the whole thing is so dreamlike that even though I know it happened, I know it's a done deal, Prim is gone, something about the way this is written, I found myself being like, this is a bad dream. She's going to wake up. This is a bad dream.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Even though, like, intellectually, I understand that's not what's happening. The feeling of it was very much like, if she could just wake up from this,
Yeah.
everything won't be terrible.
I like that because it does. I have to imagine when you go through that kind of like horrific tragedy, that's what it's like, that you think it can't be real, and it's one of the first stages of grief, so they say. I don't know how much stock we put in those stages anymore, the alleged stages.
Denial
is like one of the first ones, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it is. What are there, like 5? Is it 5 or 7? No,
I think it's 5.
It's 5 stages, 7 deadly sins.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about looking at Lemonade, the album, and seeing if like the stages of grief are represented in it, because it feels like that would be something that you'd do.
You should just do that anyway. Just treat yourself and watch Lemonade.
I rewatched it about 2 months ago, and then I re-listened to it the other day, and I literally cried at every song and was just like, how is this still happening to me after all these years? What the fuck? Like, and that's when I went and found that, like, the turning the tables, the dad's reaction to the album, because you got me watching reactions to albums now. Like, you turned me on to that.
Yay!
So, but yeah, he had already listened to Renaissance and loved it, and so they went back and listened to Lemonade. And
I would love to see that. That's patrons only.
The reason I went to the patrons only was because 2 songs kept getting hit with copyright from YouTube. And this also happened on somebody else's Lemonade React for the same song. So for whatever reason, these 2 particular songs, they had to kind of completely cut all the audio for that section. And it's just very annoying. So I was like, you know what? It's only $2.50 to become a patron. I'm going to do it, and I'll get the whole video. And it was very worth it.
I think I might do that just because you said it's worth it. I mean, it's $2.50. Yeah. I might slide on through. Throw them a couple dollars.
I'm waiting now for them to do one with Cowboy Carter, because I have to imagine they'll do it.
His reaction to Cowboy Carter, that he streamed it live on whatever his platform is. I'm thinking it might be either Discord or Twitch. And then eventually once that was done, he started uploading it to TikTok. So I've seen like
Who's
5
he
or 6
that you're talking about.
On TikTok. He goes by HT Hayes. He had those really good Renaissance reactions that me and you watched a bunch of. I'll send you some of the TikToks. He's so good. It's so good. But anyway,
sorry, this isn't a Beyonce episode as much as we kind of wish it was. So that we have the talk about, like, her getting new skin grafts because she suffered really bad burns. And later on, there is some mention about, like, how weird she still looks, and it's just a slow recovery process. And there's a point where she sees President Coin, and all she says is, "Don't worry, I've saved him for you."
Mm-hmm.
The next line is, "The doctor's puzzlement grows over why I'm unable to speak." And we find out that basically she is, like, retreating inside herself and not talking to anybody. And she doesn't actually say anything out loud until the conversation with Snow later, where she says, "I don't believe you." And that's, like, the first time she's spoken out loud.
Mm-hmm. His reply to that was, like, chilling. Like,
I know.
Whoa. It was very hard to stop reading.
Yeah. There's something about the fact that nobody really seems to understand the depth of Katniss's trauma that bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't quite understand why nobody gets it. Or if it's simply that they're impatient, they don't have time for this bullshit right now. You know what I mean? Like, but there's just this ongoing sort of sense of frustration with her in like books 2 and 3 that I just keep wanting to be like, do you not get it? Like, even I sent you a TikTok at one point where somebody was joking around about Gail being like, well, I know you've been through one of the worst traumas of your life, but mostly I really want you to kiss me and just forget about all of that. And that is kind of what he feels like upon occasion, is just, sir, she went through something like truly horrific that you've lived through bad shit, but it's a real different animal than being in the games.
Yeah.
And I just want everybody to fucking take a step back and understand it. I don't know.
You know, we find out, because I was curious, like, where is everyone else, right? And we find out that Peter was also burned pretty bad. He's somewhere in a burn unit, so we don't really get much of him. We find out that I think it's Cressida and maybe Pollux have, like, gone back out into the world to like get film and footage and shit.
Yeah.
And like there's a real sense of everyone else that's able is moving on to the next thing, and she's just sort of left behind. You know, her job, what they needed her to do is done. And she'll get over it or get back to her full self whenever she does. And it's taking a little bit longer than we would like, and what is the holdup. But also, it doesn't seem like anybody really cares. And maybe that's unfair, because this is all so much from her point of view, and she's so in her own mind. I don't know how much of her... I don't know how much of her perspective I can trust. Like, it might be very skewed, you know, but it definitely does feel like she's just been left to figure shit out on her own. Like, I feel like she wants to be alone, and she's doing that thing that she did when she was in 13, where she's going and finding all these hiding places. And I desperately wanted someone to be like, no, girl, you don't have to go hide in a closet. Like, you know, let us care for you. And they have a psychiatrist, and he just like asks her if she feels like talking, and she says no, and then he takes a nap.
She didn't even say no. She just doesn't answer him.
Right. Doesn't answer. And he's just like, well, I guess we're not talking. I'll just use this as like a little nappy nap. And while there's a part of me that appreciates her not being pushed beyond her comfort level, there is another part of me that is like, y'all just gonna sit around and let her languish? It's like, that's the order of the day. We're just all, you know,
exactly. So let's see. Eventually, I'm released from my hospital. And then here it is. I slide my bracelet that reads "mentally disoriented" around and around my wrist. My name is Katniss Everdeen. I'm 17 years old. My home is District 12. There is no District 12. I am the Mockingjay. I brought down the Capitol. President Snow hates me. He killed my sister. Now I will kill him, and then the Hunger Games will be over. And there's something about her framing it as "then the Hunger Games will be over" that I really like, because it just is like that. She never left the fucking arena. It just never happened, you know? It
never happened. Even the time when she was sent home, she was still part of the games, whether it was the fucking television crews that needed to be there, the wedding dress preparations, Snow coming there, and then getting called back into the Quarter Quell games. And now she's at 13, and everything she did with 13 and infiltrating the Capitol and bringing it down. Those were all... Especially when you talk about like them moving through the Capitol itself with the pods and all that shit. That was straight out of the games. That line, "I'll kill him and then the games will be over." Part of me, y'all, was like, but will they? Because just because Coin's gone, there's going to be someone else installed, and we don't know what that's going to look like yet. And Snow's gone. Coin will be installed. And while we have assumed that she will be a much better leader just by the fact that she's the leader of the opposition, we assume that once she's in charge, things will just be magically better. But history tells us that is not always how that shit works out.
It's true. And like, if these books are about anything, it's about trauma in a lot of ways, and the fact that clings. So, I can understand wanting to believe that. I can understand actually believing that. At least hoping that that's true.
I can understand needing to believe it. Like the need to believe it.
This is just a difficult chapter. President Snow has been tried and found guilty, sentenced to execution. Haymitch tells me. I hear talk of it as I drift past the guards in the hallways. My Mockingjay suit arrives in my room. Also, my bow, looking no worse for wear, but no sheath of arrows, either because they were damaged or more likely because I shouldn't have weapons. It made me wonder if I should be preparing for the event in some way, but nothing comes to mind. And that was a really interesting, like, they're probably aware of the fact that she is on the edge. And I think not having weapons is definitely the thing. And also, I would be very much like, should I be practicing my shooting to prepare for it? You know what I mean? Like, it's just sort of that thought was something that I know I would also be having were I in her position.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I love that it's just to, like, I vaguely wonder, like, you know, she's got, like, as consumed as she was with killing Snow, and she still is, her brain is so fried that when she finds out, like, that, you know, they're going to give her suit and all that stuff, the idea of whether or not she should be preparing for this whole event, this thing that's been like the thing for her, is only a vague notion. Should I be doing something for this? You know, do they even need me for this? Am I a part of it? You know, when it had been her driving force for so much of especially the second book and the third book. I like this bit too, where I'm sorry. I was just going to say, there's when you talked earlier about what she looks like physically with the graphs and all that, and she's looking at herself in the mirror, and she says something like, I wouldn't much care, except the sight of my body brings back the memory of the pain and why I was in pain and what happened just before the pain started and how I watched my little sister become a Human Torch. I love that progression of the things she has to think about in order to get to the moment that is the real pain. Not that like being on fire isn't real pain, but you know what I mean? Like that progression to that moment I really, really love that little bit. It's horrifying, but I loved it.
Yeah, it's a really nice illustration of just trains of thought and how they work, and the fact that like one thing just becomes inseparable from another thought. It only takes a second to get there. So this is when one day she just decides that she's going to go down a different hallway than usual because she has a sort of pattern to how she wanders, and she goes left instead of right, and she finds
lost immediately.
She gets lost and is sort of like, ooh, this is kind of nice. There's nobody down here, and it's really quiet because there's extremely thick carpeting and like tapestries, and it's softly lit, and so all of it is feeling good until she smells roses, and she has this reaction where she immediately goes into defensive mode, waiting for mutts, and then realizes that they're not coming.
She literally goes hiding, like hides behind furniture or curtains or something. Like just her reaction to that smell sends her body into immediate action, as if she's right back in the thick of battle again. And she's hiding behind these curtains or whatever, and she's just like, but nothing's coming. And then she realizes, so what is it that I'm smelling? If it's not like mutts, then what is it? Is it real roses? Am I near where these fucking roses grow?
Right? Yes.
And it's such a, like, when I think of being in a rose garden, right? I'm like, that is lovely and serene and beautiful and must smell so you know? And it is such a different experience for her. That is so unlike what I think of, like being in a greenhouse filled with roses. Like that sounds like heaven, and it is her literal hell.
It's such a bummer. Like, I know that this is such a silly thing to say, but roses being ruined for her really bums me out. It just does. Like, I just want him to have picked something that's already awful. for his scent.
You know
and
what?
That way it can just be associated with a thing that's already, but he chose like a thing that's associated normally. It's like somebody making cinnamon, their weaponized scent. Come on, man, don't do that.
Yeah, I love that point. That's a really interesting point. Taking something as beautiful and delicate, because roses are like, infamously delicate, right? You just look at one wrong and it just crumples the fucking death. If it doesn't like the vibes in the room, it wilts. It's just, and he's taken these beautiful, delicate, gorgeously scented flowers and turned them into signals of like despair and pain and cruelty. When you could have just, pick a flower that's like that nobody gives a fuck about. I can't think of one because I can't think of one. Marigolds. But yeah, it could have been marigolds. Marigolds. I don't even know what I can't think of a
flower that nobody gives a shit about. Like, what's a flower that everybody's just like, fuck that flower? Like, is that real? Is that a thing at all? I don't know.
I bet there is. I bet there is a fuck that flower. It's like the kind of, whatever kind of flower that's always on.
It's a weed. I personally like a dandelion, but I know that I am in the minority on that.
Oh my God. Could you imagine if there really was dandelions that he had picked?
They don't smell like anything, I guess. I can't, they smell like grass, pretty much.
Oh, that's funny. And he's like wearing it in his little lapel when his little suit jacket, little dandelion.
So she finally comes across these doors that are being guarded by a man and woman who are definitely like rebels because of their clothing. And she tries to like walk past them and they stop her. And I love the way I just stand there patiently waiting for them to lower their guns, for them to understand without my telling them that behind those doors is something I need. Just a rose, a single bloom, to place in Snow's lapel before I shoot him. My presence seems to worry the guards. They're discussing calling Hamish when a woman speaks up behind me. Let her go in. And I just love the idea of them like stopping her and then Katniss literally just standing there silent, looking at them and just like not moving, and how unnerving that would be.
How awkward that must have been. They're both just like, why is she still standing here? She hasn't left yet.
She's still here.
What do we do? This isn't in the handbook. And her just like, because there's no sense of like urgency with Katniss here. There's no like, I need to get in right now energy from her body. She's just, it's really giving. I can just stand here until eventually you realize you have to let me in. Eventually, somehow, by magic, you're going to understand how important it is that I get through these doors, and you'll just get it, and you'll let me in without any intervention from myself. You're just going to suddenly get it. I love it. That must have been so awkward.
Oh, man. So, finally, it turns out that the person speaking up for her is Paler, who was the one in command at the hospital when that bombing happened. And she tells them she has a right to anything behind that door. And these soldiers obey her without question. So Katniss goes through, and it's this greenhouse. And there's all of these roses that are absolutely spectacularly beautiful. And she is looking for one in particular, and she finds this white rose just beginning to open and gets some pruning shears to cut it. And just as she's cutting it, she hears Snow's voice say, "That's a nice one." And I really felt a way about the fact that like nobody warns her that this man is in this room, that they are just let her through.
This is what's weird to me. Like, I wonder if, because Paler says, she has a right to anything behind that door, right?
Mm-hmm.
So no one says explicitly that Snow is here, though it is a little peculiar that you would just be guarding just a greenhouse because, like, for why?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to occur to Katniss that he would be there. And why should it? Because he should be in a dungeon somewhere, which is what she thinks to herself, right? He should be in shackles in a basement somewhere, you know, in the dark, in the dank, not in a lovely greenhouse surrounded by all these beautiful flowers. So it doesn't occur to her that he's in there. And I wonder if they assume she knows he's there, because why else would she be here?
Oh, maybe they do.
know?
I didn't think of that, but yeah, maybe you're right.
But it begs the question. But so I don't know. Like that was my take, that they sort of assume she's there for Snow, because her mind, it's very important to get this flower because she wants to have Snow wearing it when she murders him, rightfully so.
Right.
And that is a nonsense reason. What guard is going to think that's what she's doing?
True.
Yeah. So her seriousness in her presentation about getting her sort of, I'm just going to stand here until you let me in kind of thing, even though she doesn't say anything out loud, it sort of suggests a purpose that seems very, very serious, right?
Yes.
And plucking the perfect flower doesn't really match that energy. So I think they assumed she knew he was there.
Okay, I accept that. I like that as an explanation. So this is fascinating to me because she's looking at him like, the fuck are you doing? I thought you'd be in a goddamn dungeon. And then Coin left him here to set a precedent, I guess, so that if in the future she ever fell from grace, it would be understood that presidents, even the most despicable, get special treatment. Who knows, after all, when her own power might fade.
That is really something.
That is like just really cynical. And I don't mean like Katniss being cynical. Like just the idea that she's going to treat him as well as she wants to be treated. Like, were this I don't know if that would have occurred to me as Katniss. I don't feel like I would have put that together, but that sounds right to me.
I don't think I would have put it together either. And I think she nails it. Not just with Coin and Snow, but I think it's like, if you think about a commentary on larger things, we really do that. We constantly are like, oh, we're going to hold them to a higher standard for the crimes that they've committed. And then the standard that they get held to is literally below the bar, like on the ground, because I think that in the back of people in power, in the back of their head is always, what's going to happen to me when it's my downfall. So I better make sure I'm treating this person this way, because when it's my turn, I want to make sure that I am treated that way. And I don't even know if that's a conscious thing that people do or that people in power do. I don't know. I'm not going to theorize on whether Coin is doing this on purpose to set a precedent, but I really do think that it's probably something that's circled in the back of her brain.
I have to agree. Yeah. So he says, this is so, first thing first, I wanted to tell you how very sorry I am about your sister. What was your reaction when you first read that sentence?
I wanted to punch him in his fucking face.
I feel like that's accurate to most of us. Yeah.
I mean, it's just like she says immediately that there's no limit to his cruelty, and he'll always try to destroy me. So she takes it as like an attack, and it is kind of an attack, right?
Yeah.
It's to throw her off her game. It's to wound her. And he's always been very good at knowing how to push her buttons, how to get to her. And it doesn't take like a super genius to know bringing up the sister that she just watched get killed would be a painful thing. But for him to say it in such a way, how sorry he is, especially because we find out immediately that he knows she's under the assumption that he is the one that ordered that.
Yeah.
So if I'm Katniss and the person who I think killed my sister is offering me their condolences, you can just get all the way the fuck out of my face with that. Like immediately, post haste. Ugh. And then he says, so wasteful, so unnecessary.
Yeah. And when he sees her face, you really didn't think I gave the order, did you? Forget the obvious fact that if I'd had a working hovercraft at my disposal, I'd have been using it to make an escape. But that aside, what purpose could it have served? We both know I'm not above killing children, but I'm not wasteful. I take life for very specific reasons. And there was no reason for me to destroy a pen full of capital children. However, I must concede it was a masterful move on Coin's part. The idea that I was bombing our own helpless children instantly snapped whatever frail allegiance my people still felt to me. There was no real resistance after that. Did you know it aired live? You can see Plutarch's hand there. And in the parachutes. Well, it's that sort of thing that you look for in a head game maker, isn't it? I'm sure he wasn't gunning for your sister, but these things happen. So do you believe him?
This is the thing, right? He's making some really good arguments. When we had the last chapter, I think I asked about the seal on the hovercraft. Because it said it had a capital seal on it. And I didn't remember at the time that I brought it up, but really what it was is I was remembering from earlier that they had told us they didn't have any hovercrafts left because of the uprising in whichever district it was that, was building them and putting them together. I think maybe Beatty's district or whatever. So I had a weird glitch in my brain when that moment happened with the hovercraft dropping all the parachutes, of being like, what if it's not the Capitol? But at the time, it just didn't make sense. So I was like, that's got to be the Capitol because those are the bad guys, right?
Right, yeah.
But to your question, do I believe him? I believe he is making some excellent points as far as if I had access to a getaway machine, I would have been using that machine to get away. Hence the name.
I don't know why that's so funny.
And then his bit about Plutarch, while I feel like there's truth in it, not that Plutarch would see this as an excellent opportunity and would understand how it would play out on camera and the impact it would have on everybody who was watching it. I don't want this to be true. Because if it's true, and there's only 2 chapters in the book left, I don't know how we resolve this.
Yeah.
So he's got to be playing with her head here. I mean, I'm just I don't. I don't like it. I don't even feel very strongly that I'm getting it right. But out of sheer refusal to accept the alternative, which is that 13, Coin, Plutarch, and whoever else this last bit, because we've seen 13 and Coin and the Resistance be willing to do some very, very unsavory shit. You know, we've seen them say time and again that they're going to give what they're going to match energy, right? They're going to give the capital what the capital gives us. We're going to play by their rules, which are fire with fire. There are no rules. We're going to do to them what they do to us. And we've also seen from 13 that they have sort of put the people of the capital in a category, like a dehumanized category. So whatever we do to them isn't as bad because they don't count. They're not real people anymore. You know, they are so complicit with the regime that whatever we do to them is justified.
Yeah.
Which is a very, very dangerous way to be viewing human beings, you know, when you other them to the point that anything you do to them is acceptable. So I'm talking myself in circles here, but I wouldn't put it past 13 to do an action like this, as much as I don't want that to be true. But I can't. I just don't see how the book. I don't see how the book ends if it turns out that Coin okayed doing this and killing all of those children as a last desperate act to finally end the war and win the war. Because you can also do that thing where you do the numbers game where you're like, well, we're going to kill X number of children, but we're saving this larger number of people's lives by ending the war. You know, that
right. Yep.
Sort of Oppenheimer fucking theory, you know, way of looking at the world. And I'm saying Oppenheimer without actually having seen the movie, y'all. So please don't add me.
I'm sure that somebody can cite one of the trolley experiment type things from Good Place.
But do I believe him? I think he's doing that thing where you take just enough truth to fuck somebody up, just like a kernel of truth, and then you wrap it up in some other bullshit. I think that's probably what's happening. And I'm going to be wrong. And I'm going to have an egg on my face. And it's going to be on video. I'm going to have an egg on my face on video. I prefer my egg just audio only.
You're assuming that we get a definitive answer.
I am, because that's what I wanted out of my books.
Oh, this is awkward.
Oh, no.
He says, my failure was being so slow to grasp Coin's plan to let the capital and districts destroy one another and then step in to take power with 13 barely scratched. Make no mistake, she was intending to take my place right from the beginning. I shouldn't be surprised. After all, it was 13 that started the rebellion that led to the Dark Days and then abandoned the rest of the districts when the tide turned against it. But I wasn't watching Coin. I was watching you, Mockingjay, and you were watching me. I'm afraid we have both been played for fools. I refuse for this to be true. Some things even I can't survive. I utter my first words since my sister's death. I don't believe you. Snow shakes his head in mock disappointment. Oh, my dear Miss Everdeen, I thought we had agreed not to lie to each other.
Man.
And that is a line. There's so much in that line. He's saying simultaneously, I'm not lying to you, and I think you do believe me. You know, there's just, it's just a lot.
Yeah, it's a hell of a line.
All right, you ready to start 26?
Oh, I'm not, but here we are.
Put your book away.
Oh, I hate that. Okay.
This is a very packed chapter in terms of things to talk about. So I'll definitely be stopping here and there.
Okay.
Out in the hall, I find Paylor standing in exactly the same spot. Did you find what you were looking for? She asks. I hold up the white bud in answer and then stumble past her. I must have made it back to my room because the next thing I know, I'm filling a glass with water from the bathroom faucet and sticking the rose in it. I sink to my knees on the cold tile and squint at the flower as the whiteness seems hard to focus on in the stark fluorescent light. My finger catches the inside of my bracelet, twisting it like a tourniquet, hurting my wrist. I'm hoping the pain will help me hang on to reality the way it did for PETA. I must hang on. I must know the truth about what happened. There are two possibilities, although the details associated with them may vary. First, as I've believed, that the Capitol sent in that hovercraft, dropped the parachutes, and sacrificed its children's lives knowing the recently arrived rebels would go to their aid. There's evidence to support this. The Capitol's seal on the hovercraft, the lack of any attempt to blow the enemy out of the sky, their long history of using children as pawns in their battle against the districts. Then there's Snow's account, that a Capitol hovercraft manned by rebels bombed the children to bring a speedy end to the war. But if this was the case, why didn't the Capitol fire on the enemy? Did the element of surprise throw them? Had they no defenses left? Children are precious to 13, or so it has always seemed. Well, not me, maybe. Once I'd outlived my usefulness, I was expendable, although I think it's been a long time since I've been considered a child in this war. And why would they do it knowing their own medics would likely respond and be taken out by the second blast? They wouldn't. They couldn't. Snow's lying, manipulating me, as he always has, hoping to turn me against the rebels and possibly destroy them. Yes, of course. Then what's nagging at me? Those double exploding bombs, for one. It's not that the Capitol couldn't have the same weapon. It's just that I'm sure the rebels did. Gale and Beatty's brainchild. Then there's the fact that Snow made no escape attempt when I know him to be the consummate survivor. It seems hard to believe he didn't have a retreat somewhere, some bunker stocked with provisions, where he could live out the rest of his snaky little life. And finally, there's his assessment of Coin. What's irrefutable is that she's done exactly what he said. Let the Capitol and the districts run one another into the ground, and then sauntered in to take over. Even if that was her plan, it doesn't mean she dropped those parachutes. Victory was already in her grasp. Everything was in her grasp. Except me. I recall Boggs' response when I admitted I hadn't put much thought into Snow's successor. If your immediate answer isn't Coin, then you're a threat. You're the face of the rebellion. You may have more influence than any other single person. Outwardly, the most you've ever done is tolerated her. Suddenly, I'm thinking of Prim, who was not yet 14. Not yet old enough to be granted the title of soldier, but somehow working on the front lines. How did such a thing happen? That my sister would have wanted to be there, I have no doubt. That she would be more capable than many older than she is a given. But for all that, someone very high up would have had to approve putting a 13-year-old in combat. Did Coin do it hoping that losing Prim would push me completely over the edge? Or at least firmly on her side? I wouldn't even have had to witness it in person. Numerous cameras would be covering the city circle, capturing the moment forever. No, now I'm going crazy, slipping into some state of paranoia. Too many people would know of the mission. Word would get out. Or would it? Who would have to know besides Coin, Plutarch, and a small, loyal, or easily disposable crew? I badly need help working this out, only everyone I trust is dead. Cinna, Boggs, Finnick, Prim. There's PETA, but he couldn't do any more than speculate, and who knows what state his mind's in anyway. And that leaves only Gale. He's far away, but even if he were beside me, could I confide in him? What could I say? How could I phrase it without implying it was his bomb that killed Prim? The impossibility of that idea more than any is why I know Snow must be lying. Ultimately, there's only one person to turn to who might know what happened and might still be on my side. To broach the subject at all will be a risk, but while I think Haymitch might gamble with my life in the arena, I don't think he'd rat me out to coin. Whatever problems we may have with each other, we prefer resolving our differences one-on-one. I scramble off the tiles, out the door, and across the hall to his room. When there's no response to my knock, I push inside. Ugh. It's amazing how quickly he can defile a place. Half-eaten plates of food, shattered liquor bottles, and pieces of broken furniture from a drunken rampage scatter his quarters. He lies unkempt and unwashed in a tangle of sheets on the bed, passed out. Haymitch, I say, shaking his leg. Of course, that's insufficient, but I give it a few more tries before I dump the pitcher of water in his face. He comes to with a gasp, slashing blindly with his knife. Apparently, the end of Snow's reign didn't equal the end of his terror. Oh, you, he says. I can tell by his voice that he's still loaded. Haymitch, I begin. Listen to that. The Mockingjay found her voice. He laughs. Well, Plutarch's going to be happy. He takes a swig from a bottle. Why am I soaking wet? I lamely drop the pitcher behind me into a pile of dirty clothes. I need your help, I say. Haymitch belches, filling the air with white liquor fumes. What is it, sweetheart? More boy trouble? I don't know why, but this hurts me in a way Haymitch rarely can. It must show on my face because even in his drunken state, he tries to take it back. Okay, not funny. I'm already at the door. Not funny! Come back! By the thud of his body hitting the floor, I assume he tried to follow me, but there's no point. I zigzag through the mansion and disappear into a wardrobe full of silken things. I yank them from hangers until I have a pile, and then burrow into it. In the lining of my pocket, I find a stray morphling tablet and swallow it dry, heading off my rising hysteria. It's not enough to write things, and I hear Haymitch calling me in the distance, but he won't find me in his condition, especially not in this new spot. Swathed in silk, I feel like a caterpillar in a cocoon awaiting metamorphosis. I always supposed that to be a peaceful condition. At first it is, but as I journey into night, I feel more and more trapped, suffocated by the slippery bindings, unable to emerge until I have transformed into something of beauty. I squirm, trying to shed my ruined body and unlock the secret to growing flawless wings. Despite enormous effort, I remain a hideous creature, fired into my current form by the blast from the bombs. The encounter with Snow opens the door to my old repertoire of nightmares. It's like being stung by trackerjackers again. A wave of horrifying images with a brief respite I confuse with waking, only to find another wave knocking me back. When the guards finally locate me, I'm sitting on the floor of the wardrobe, tangled in silk, screaming my head off. I fight them at first, until they convince me they're trying to help, peel away the choking garments, and escort me back to my room. On the way, we pass a window and I see a gray, snowy dawn spreading across the Capitol. A very hungover Haymitch waits with a handful of pills and a tray of food that neither of us has the stomach for. He makes a feeble attempt to get me to talk again, but seeing it's pointless, sends me to a bath someone has drawn. The tub's deep, with 3 steps to the bottom. I ease down into the warm water and sit up to my neck in suds, hoping the medicines kick in soon. My eyes focus on the rose that has spread its petals overnight, filling the steamy air with its strong perfume. I rise and reach for a towel to smother it when there's a tentative knock and the bathroom door opens, revealing 3 familiar faces. They try to smile at me, but even Venya can't conceal her shock at my ravaged mutt body. Surprise! Octavia squeaks, and then bursts into tears. I'm puzzling over their reappearance when I realize that this must be it, the day of the execution. They've come to prep me for the camera, remake me to beauty base 0. No wonder Octavia is crying. It's an impossible task. I'm going to stop and ask you what you think about her thoughts regarding whether Snow is telling the truth or not.
That was a lot. Her reasoning back and forth between like, well, what Snow's saying and then what Coin would do and why, and who made the double exploding parachutes. And it's kind of how I felt, like I was going around in circles, you know. I feel very much like Katniss and I are both desperate for it not to be Coin who who authorized that bomb dropping. The remembrance of what Boggs said in this moment is really poignant, because he told us that above all, Katniss was a threat to Coin and her ability to assume power without any challengers. And Katniss occupies a very specific space in the imagination of everybody. You know, she's the face of the rebellion. She's the spark of it. She's the symbol of it. This bit about why, and this hadn't even occurred to me, and I feel like a dodo bird, but why was Prim in the field, right? Like, I forgot that Prim was so young, and granted,
I'll be honest, I didn't even question it. I'm just like, they're going to use everybody. Like,
I was like, she's very, very good. She was like head and shoulders more advanced than most of the people that they had that were trained in 13 when she got there. And she's, I'm assuming she's only moved forward. So when she showed up, I was just like, well, of course, you're going to send the best people you have.
Right. Yeah.
And I guess that's still possible. But we do remember that things in 13 were very, very regimented and very rigid, you know, and exceptions to rules had to be okayed by somebody. And even if it was an exception to the rule and it was okayed, it doesn't necessarily mean that there was anything malicious behind it, right? They could have just been like, Prim's really fucking good at what she does and we could use her, so we're going to go ahead and sign off on it. But it, I hate this doubt that's been planted.
Yeah.
I also hate that when she needed to have a conversation, I knew she was going to Haymitch when you were reading. I was like, okay, she's got to go to Haymitch. There's no one else. It's got to be him. And I was praying that he would be in a position to be of some use. And when she opens the door and finds him in the state that he's in, I was just like, God damn it. I thought that he was on the wagon. I thought that was the most important thing, but I guess now that they're in the Capitol, all bets are off and he can just go wild and nobody cares anymore because apparently they don't need him anymore either, right? They don't care if he's sober or not. He's also, you know, what do you call it? Served his purpose. And now they're just like, you can go and drink as much as you want. We don't give a fuck. It's fine. Which does not make Coin and her people look great, in my opinion, that we're just disposing of people so quickly. Also, I have a question. It came up in the chapter that we read, but I can't remember. We didn't talk about it. Where's Gale?
Oh,
Gale is out on a mission somewhere.
Yeah, she says that he took a couple of bullets escaping from the peacekeepers, and now he's mopping up what's left, I think is the way it's phrased. Mopping up peacekeepers in 2.
The last time we see him is he's getting drawn through that door with people with white gloves, and he's saying, shoot me, but she doesn't. And now he's managed to escape those peacekeepers, took a couple bullets, and is now off somewhere else on another mission. I'm being shady about him being taken by peacekeepers because I'm just being shady about it. I'm sure that's what happened. I'm sure it's fine. I'm being overly paranoid.
It's interesting though, like talking about like Haymitch being put aside. Like, there's also just the fact that he is a drunk, and he may have put himself aside. Like, maybe they tried to do things with him, and he was not fucking up for it, and not putting any effort in anymore. You know,
that's 100%. And you wonder, like, if what happened to Prim if what happened to Prim broke him because they did something, right? And he maybe wasn't necessarily complicit, but was there and powerless to make it go different. That could send somebody right off the edge. And I'm assuming that now that they're in the Capitol, he doesn't have the problem with access to liquor that he would have had when he was at 13, when there just wasn't any to be found. And maybe it's not a priority to keep him sober. Maybe it's not a priority to make sure that he doesn't drink himself into a stupor. Right. Which is what I mean by, like, well, just do whatever you want, dude. It's fine. You know, like if it was a priority to them, they would, I don't know, they would have guards or chaperones or somebody around to, make sure that he stays sober if that's what they needed from him. Yeah. If that's what they demanded of him. But if they're done making demands, then, he's going to go right back to his ways if there's not going to be anybody there to stop him. I'm wondering now when she shows up, more boy trouble. Hey, Mitch.
What the fuck, dude? For real. Like, was that really necessary? Come now.
Can we not? This is the first time you've heard her speak, and this is what you come back with. And I do appreciate how quickly he realizes that he's fucked up, but he's just unable to to fix it. Because sometimes once you say shit, it's too late. Sometimes you say shit and it's just said, and you can't call it back as much as you might want to. Oh, I hate all of this. I don't like any of this. And I really don't like that. Like, Haymitch has never been like our go-to guy. He's never been like a stand-up guy. No. He's not like Mr. Reliable in a crisis. But he is what she has left. And it is a bummer that she goes to him for help. And that's the state she finds him in. It is just a huge bummer. I don't like any of it.
All right. They can barely touch my patchwork of skin for fear of hurting me, so I rinse and dry off myself. I tell them I hardly notice the pain anymore, but Flavius still winces as he drapes a robe around me. In the bedroom, I find another surprise. Sitting upright in a chair, polished from her metallic gold wig to her patent leather high heels, gripping a clipboard, remarkably unchanged, except for the vacant look in her eyes. Effie, I say. Hello, Katniss. She stands and kisses me on the cheek as if nothing has occurred since our last meeting, the night before the quarter quell. Well, it looks like we've got another big day ahead of us, so why don't you start your prep and I'll just pop over and check on the arrangements. Okay, I say to her back.
How is Effie back? What is happening?
Back? What do you mean?
Okay, you're right. My fault. You're right. My bad, y'all. My bad. Let me just let you read. I'm just. Oh no.
They say Plutarch and Haymitch had a hard time keeping her alive, comments Venya under her breath. She was imprisoned after your escape, so that helps. It's quite a stretch. Effie Trinket, rebel? But I don't want Coin killing her, so I make a mental note to present her that way, if asked. I guess it's good Plutarch kidnapped you three after all. We're the only prep team still alive, and all the stylists from the Quarter Quell are dead, says Venia. She doesn't say who specifically killed them. I'm beginning to wonder if it matters. She gingerly takes one of my scarred hands and holds it out for inspection. Now, what do you think for the nails? Red or maybe a jet black? Flavius performs some beauty miracle on my hair, managing to even out the front while getting some of the longer locks to hide the bald spots in the back. My face, since it was spared from the flames, presents no more than the usual challenges. Once I'm in Cinna's Mockingjay suit, the only scars visible are on my neck, forearms, and hands. Octavia secures my Mockingjay pin over my heart, and we step back to look in the mirror. I can't believe how normal they've made me look on the outside, when inwardly I'm such a wasteland. There's a tap at the door, and Gale steps in. Can I have a minute? He asks. In the mirror, I watch my prep team. Unsure of where to go, they bump into one another a few times, and then closet themselves in the bathroom. Gale comes up behind me, and we examine each other's reflection. I'm searching for something to hang on to, some sign of the girl and boy who met by chance in the woods 5 years ago and became inseparable. I'm wondering what would have happened to them if the Hunger Games had not reaped the girl. If she would have fallen in love with the boy, married him even, and sometime in the future when the brothers and sisters had been raised up, escaped with him into the woods and left 12 behind forever. Would they have been happy out in the wild? Or would the dark, twisted sadness between them have grown up even without the capital's help? I brought you this. Gale holds up a sheath. When I take it, I notice it holds a single, ordinary arrow. It's supposed to be symbolic, you firing the last shot of the war. What if I miss, I say? Does Coin retrieve it and bring it back to me? Or just shoot Snow through the head herself? You won't miss. Gale adjusts the sheath on my shoulder. We stand there, face to face, not meeting each other's eyes. You didn't come see me in the hospital. He doesn't answer, so finally I just say it. Was it your bomb? I don't know. Neither does Beatty, he says. Does it matter? You'll always be thinking about it. He waits for me to deny it. I want to deny it, but it's true. Even now, I can see the flash that ignites her, feel the heat of the flames, and I will never be able to separate that moment from Gale. My silence is my answer. That was the one thing I had going for me. Taking care of your family, he says. Shoot straight, okay? He touches my cheek and leaves. I want to call him back and tell him that I was wrong, that I'll figure out a way to make peace with this, to remember the circumstances under which he created the bomb, take into account my own inexcusable crimes, dig up the truth about who dropped the parachutes, prove it wasn't the rebels, forgive him. But since I can't, I'll just have to deal with the pain. Effie comes in to usher me to some kind of meeting. I collect my bow and at the last minute remember the rose, glistening in its glass of water. When I open the door to the bathroom, I find my prep team sitting in a row on the edge of the tub, hunched and defeated. I remember I'm not the only one whose world has been stripped away. Come on, I tell them. We've got an audience waiting. I'm expecting a production meeting in which Plutarch instructs me where to stand and gives me my cue for shooting Snow. Instead, I find myself sent into a room where 6 people sit around a table. Peta, Joanna, Beatty, Haymitch, Annie, and Enobaria. They all wear the gray rebel uniforms from 13. No one looks particularly well. What's this? I say. We're not sure, Haymitch answers. It appears to be a gathering of the remaining victors. We're all that's left? I ask. The price of celebrity, says Beatty. We were targeted from both sides. The Capitol killed the victors they suspected of being rebels. The rebels killed those thought to be allied with the Capitol. Joanna scowls at Enobaria. So what's she doing here? She is protected under what we call the Mockingjay deal, says Coyne as she enters behind me, wherein Katniss Everdeen agreed to support the rebels in exchange for captured victors' immunity. Katniss has upheld her side of the bargain, and so shall we. Enobaria smiles at Joanna. Don't look so smug, says Joanna. We'll kill you anyway.
I love her so much.
Joanna, man, I swear to God. I almost got through that without laughing, but I couldn't do it.
I'm sorry. I couldn't help it.
That's not your fault. What did you think of the chat with Gail?
Man. That was hard.
It's just so really hard. Bleak.
And it's not even about like whether he dropped him or not. It's just about, was that his creation? Did something that you and Beatty cook up? Was that you guys? And yeah, we're not sure, but probably. And what he must be like. I'm not trying to censor Gale, but I will talk about him for just a moment. I don't know. There hasn't been a lot because this is all in Katniss's POV all the time. I don't know what internal conflict Gale might be trying to navigate. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, he was like, he was woke before being woke was cool, right? He was woke in book 1. And we saw him progress into being willing to do just about anything in service of liberation, which you kind of need that and you kind of want that. But it's never really that black and white. There's always like a gray area, even if you don't ever want to talk about it. And I wonder about, like, the only time the gray sort of comes up is when Katniss pokes at him. Yeah. And then he has to sort of like say something in defense of his actions. But I really wonder how he is going to carry, knowing, like, it's one thing for your creations to take out people that are the enemy, or people that you don't know, people that you're fighting, but to witness one of your creations doing something as despicable as being lobbed against children that are basically like in a shooting fish in a barrel. And then on top of it, Prim being there, like, he's not just going to walk away from that. He's going to carry that forever. And there's a sadness about that, Yeah. And the reality is that, and it was so beautifully written, that this whole experience has changed them, forever. There's no going back. Yeah. There's no going back to whatever they used to be, whatever they used to have. And when he says that, I really blew it. The one thing I had going for me was taking care of your family. Like, that hits. Yeah. This is all so terribly sad.
Yeah. It really is. This is something that I remember on my first read through I was not prepared for, because I was used to the ends of trilogies like this being the victorious sort of regrouping. And instead, it's just like devastation.
Yeah. I was also preparing myself for a victory lap that it does not seem like I am going to get, which, sucks to suck.
Indeed.
I thought for sure I was going to get, like, not necessarily a happy ending, but like a happier ending, a happier than when we started ending, and it's not looking happy-ish, right? It is happy adjacent. It's not looking good. It's no, Jesus Christ, this thing is going to end and have me wanting to just slip my fucking wrist. God damn it.
Okay. Sit down, please, Katniss, says Coin, closing the door. I take a seat between Annie and Beatty, carefully placing Snow's rose on the table. As usual, Coin gets right to the point. I've asked you here to settle a debate. Today, we will execute Snow. In the previous weeks, hundreds of his accomplices in the oppression of Panem have been tried and now await their own deaths. However, the suffering in the districts has been so extreme that these measures appear insufficient to the victims. In fact, many are calling for a complete annihilation of those who held capital citizenship. However, in the interest of maintaining a sustainable population, we cannot afford this. Through the water in the glass, I see a distorted image of one of Peeta's hands. The burn marks. We're both fire mutts now. My eyes travel up to where the flames licked across his forehead, singeing away his brows, but just missing his eyes. Those same blue eyes that used to meet mine and then flit away at school, just as they do now. So, an alternative has been placed on the table. Since my colleagues and I can come to no consensus, it has been agreed that we will let the victors decide. A majority of 4 will approve the plan. No one may abstain from the vote. What has been proposed is that in lieu of eliminating the entire capital population, we have a final symbolic Hunger Games, using the children directly related to those who held the most power. All 7 of us turn to her.
Absolutely not.
What? Says Joanna. We hold another Hunger Games using capital children, says Coin. Are you joking? Asks Peeta. No. I should also tell you that if we do hold the games, it will be known it was done with your approval, although the individual breakdown of your votes will be kept secret for your own security, Coin tells us. Was this Plutarch's idea? Asks Haymitch. It was mine, says Coin. It seemed to balance the need for vengeance with the least loss of life. You may cast your votes. No, bursts out Peeta. I vote no, of course. We can't have another Hunger Games. Why not? Joanna retorts. It seems very fair to me. Snow even has a granddaughter. I vote yes. So do I, says Enobarmia, almost indifferently. Let them have a taste of their own medicine. This is why we rebelled, remember? Peeta looks at the rest of us. Annie? I vote no with Peeta, she says. So would Finnick if he were here. But he isn't because Snow's mutts killed him, Joanna reminds her. No, says Beatty. It would set a bad precedent. We have to stop viewing one another as the enemies. At this point, unity is essential for our survival. No. We're down to Katniss and Haymitch, says Coin. Was it like this then? 75 years or so ago, did a group of people sit around and cast their votes on initiating the Hunger Games? Was there dissent? Did someone make a case for mercy that was beaten down by the calls for the deaths of the district's children? The scent of Snow's rose curls up into my nose, down into my throat, squeezing it tight with despair. All those people I loved, dead. And we are discussing the next Hunger Games in an attempt to avoid wasting life. Nothing has changed. Nothing will ever change now. I weigh my options carefully, think everything through. Keeping my eyes on the rose, I say, I vote yes for Prim. Haymitch, It's up to you, says Coin. A furious PETA hammers Haymitch with the atrocity he would become party to. But I can feel Haymitch watching me. This is the moment then. When we find out exactly how alike we are and how much he truly understands me. I'm with a Mockingjay, he says. Excellent. That carries the vote, says Coin. Now, we really must take our places for the execution. As she passes me, I hold up the glass with the rose. Can you see that Snow's wearing this just over his heart? Coin smiles. Of course. And I'll make sure he knows about the games. Thank you, I say. I'm going to pause here.
What the fuck?
Yeah, this is a real heavy moment.
What the fuck? Are we really doing this? This has got to be like a trick or something, right? Like her and Haymitch are having that sort of like mind meld thing where they both get something else. Katniss is not voting for another Hunger Games. Like,
how could she take this vote back?
I don't know. This isn't right. This can't be right. Like, for Prim, the desire for vengeance, like, my God, does Coin make sure Prim dies not because she needs to destroy Katniss or get Katniss out of the way? Does she do it so that Katniss will vote for the games because she has so much rage and need for vengeance? Like, I'm
not sure the idea of a second games had even come up yet.
Well, I don't know. But I can't believe she's voting for another games. This is like, no, I can't. I'm like PETA. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. I get like some of the other people, you know, getting a taste of their own medicine. You know, they did it to us. We can do it to them. Coin's whole reasoning, you know, is a way, again, we're doing this thing where it's like to save more lives, we're going to sacrifice these lives. And she's like, oh, one more game. But it's never going to just be one. It's never just one.
That's the thing. Yeah.
I can't.
If we could guarantee it was the last one, then maybe, but I just don't see that being possible to promise. Like,
no, not even. I am. My gabber is flaccid. I don't know what to say. I am beyond shook right now. Even as you were leading up to this, right, and they're going around the table, I didn't even feel tension because you
thought for sure she'd say no, right?
I was so certain how she would vote that it didn't even feel like a tense moment. I'm gobsmacked. I really, really am. And I don't know how to say this in a way that makes sense. It's not that I don't think the grief around Prim's murder isn't enough of a motivation. And I guess have to consider how raw it is and how recent it is and how unrecovered Katniss is from all of everything she's been through. She's just like a walking open wound at this point. But it still feels like the opposite of every single thing that I've been told about who she is. It just flies in the face of everything. I'm shocked. I am shocked. Yeah. And like I said, I want it to be whenever this happens in both fiction and my real life, listeners, I tend to want to feel like that's not happening. I must be misreading it. I'm going to be in denial about it because that just makes no sense. It's too awful to be what's happening. So there's got to be some mysterious thing that I don't see. You know what I mean? There's got to be a man behind the curtain because what I see is so objectionable. I don't want it to be the thing. And that's how I feel right now. I feel like you're going to flip a page and it's going to be like a, ha-ha! You didn't know what we were really doing with this. I don't know what to say. I'm almost don't want you to finish reading because I don't like it. I don't like where it's going.
I get that. Here I go. People sweep into the room surrounding me. The last touch of powder, the instructions from Plutarch as I'm guided to the front doors of the mansion. The city circle runs over, spills people down the side streets. The others take their places outside. Guards, officials, rebel leaders, victors. I hear the cheers that indicate Coin has appeared on the balcony. Then Effie taps my shoulder, and I step out into the cold winter sunlight. Walk to my position, accompanied by the deafening roar of the crowd. As directed, I turn so they see me in profile, and wait. When they march Snow out the door, the audience goes insane. They secure his hands behind a post, which is unnecessary. He's not going anywhere. There's nowhere to go. This is not the roomy stage before the training center, but the narrow terrace in front of the president's mansion. No wonder no one bothered to have me practice. He's 10 yards away. I feel the bow purring in my hand. Reach back and grasp the arrow. Position it. Aim at the rose, but watch his face. He coughs, and a bloody dribble runs down his chin. His tongue flicks over his puffy lips. I search his eyes for the slightest sign of anything. Fear, remorse, anger. But there's only the same look of amusement that ended our last conversation. It's as if he's speaking the words again. Oh, my dear Miss Everdeen, I thought we had agreed not to lie to each other. He's right. We did. The point of my arrow shifts upward. I release the string, and President Coin collapses over the side of the balcony and plunges to the ground, dead. End of chapter.
Shut up!
I know!
Shut the fuck up!
Yep,
I'm
she
making
did
so
that
much
shit.
noise. Steve's gonna be so mad. I'm making so much noise. Oh my god! And oh my god! Oh my god! I had like a split second thought of like, this bitch gonna have to kill Coin, but it like made no sense because like what? Like what? You can't do that. Oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. I mean, she was right to do it. She was right to do it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But holy shit.
Can you imagine Coin's final thoughts as she sees that arrow coming for her? Like,
oh
woo,
my.
Comes at you fast.
Oh my god. Oh.
Probably just thinking, God, I knew I should have just killed you.
Oh my god. See, so she doesn't make the decision until the last minute when she's looking at Snow, right?
I am not sure I believe that.
Or the minute Coin walks in and talks about we need to have another Hunger Games, because when Coin walks in and says that, my brain is like, oh, this bitch, she's got to go. Like, this is just the same shit. She's got to go. And Hamish, when Hamish is like, I got to go with the Mockingjay, but I want it to be, we knew what she was doing the minute Coin comes in and says, we're going to do another Hunger Games. And I'm assuming, well, this is where it gets murky because, all right, let me collect myself. Everybody just calm down. Okay. Say Katniss votes no to the next Hunger Games. Does she still get tasked with executing Snow?
That's the question, right?
Right? So
I believe that she voted yes to make it seem as if she had fully come over.
This is what I want it to be. This is what I meant when we're like, when she says yes and then Haymitch votes with her, and I'm talking about they have like a little mind meld because they always know what each other is thinking. This is what I wanted it to be, but I don't have any evidence that that's what it is, right? So I'm just saying, I'm just going on vibes, but oh my God, y'all, what is we gonna do? What is gonna happen? Oh my God.
That's the other question. Like, what do you think is next for Katniss after she executes the rebel president? Like,
and she only has the one
what
arrow.
about Snow?
So she can't just take Snow out immediately because they only gave her the one.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Somebody
very
else
possible
could take Snow out. I mean,
yeah, they could.
You know, like,
it's very possible that somebody just shoots Katniss in the head immediately, and she just drops, and that's just the end of this fucking her story.
How would you feel about it if that's how it ended?
I would be sad that that's how it ended, but I'd be like, okay, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You know, okay. I mean, it would suck for her mom, but I'd be like, because honestly, y'all, let's keep it a buck for a second. What kind of life is Katniss going to have after everything she's been through? Like, yeah. You know what I mean? What is her life? Question. What does it look like? I'm not saying like, oh, it's better to be dead than be alive. Like, I'm not saying that. But if we can just be real for just a split second here. She's been through so much loss. Who can she trust? Who is left in her life? Her mom has been buried in work. She hasn't been sitting by the side of the bed nursing Katniss back to health. She's in her. They don't tell us that in so many words, but it sounds like she's doing that thing again, where she's like avoiding the pain of her loss by just being anywhere other than being a mother to Katniss. Yeah. If she takes out Coin and she doesn't have any more arrows left and she's just standing there and someone pops her and she drops, as long as somebody kills Snow, I'm satisfied. I just need to make sure he doesn't live. Fair. And I don't know who's like, I don't know like who is armed and who would make sure that he goes down. This is going to be a fucking shit show. Holy shit. This shit is on TV too.
Live streamed. Yeah.
Ooh. That's the end of the chapter?
Oh, the my God. Last sentence of the chapter, dead. And what is the last word of the chapter.
And how many do we have left?
There's one chapter and an epilogue.
And are no more live reads so I can just read these? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm reading the fuck out of these.
Yeah, I figured you would.
Holy shit. Never in a million years. I didn't think she'd do it. I didn't think she'd do it for real.
I had, the first time I read this, I had an inkling that I almost immediately dismissed. And when she went ahead and did it, I fist pumped so hard. I was so glad.
It's absurd when it pops in your head, right? You're just like, wait, what? That's crazy talk. I can't believe she did it. She's such a fucking badass. Fucking hell.
Truly.
Oh my God. Fucking talk about standing on business.
I really wonder, how many other people had started to realize what Katniss, because, she's in that meeting thinking nothing is ever going to change. And had other people begun to figure that out as well? Boggs was like her right-hand man, and he even started to be like, the fuck is this bitch doing, Yep. And I really wonder if there are other people who get it, will Katniss, be handled the way you would assume out of the gate, because other people are also beginning to understand that like Coin wasn't really going to be better.
Yeah.
But it's so early and so few people have really known the intricacies of what Coin has been up to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I think that's really happening, you know?
I think the only people that would have an inclination of what Coin was really about would be the victors that were in that room. And so we have Peter voted no games, Beatty voted no games.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the only two that said no. Joanna said yes, and Obaria said yes. Katniss said yes, and then Hamish said yes.
And no, Annie voted no.
Oh, and Annie said no. Annie Peter said no. Annie Peter. Yeah. Okay. I don't know, man. And then it's not like they wield a lot of power. Well, Beatty does, you know, a little bit. You know, he kind of moved up in the ranks into 13, but it's not like Annie and Joanna have that much political power or capital to use or wield. Fuck, man. I'm curious, was the intention to have the games again made public? Did I miss that?
I don't think it was. I think she said that if this gets voted yes, then the public will know it was done with your approval. But I do not think anybody knew that this was being circulated as a possibility.
Right. See, if they knew that it was a possibility, then that would make me think that there would be more people that would be like, yeah, she was right to do it. Mm-hmm. But if they don't know that's what Coin's intentions were, this is going to seem like a wild act on Katniss's part. She's going to seem unhinged, you know, and probably, I'm so curious what's going to happen to Snow. My God, maybe Gale takes Snow out. Maybe Gale will understand what's happening because of what happened with Prim. Maybe Gale has been sort of jolted out of the sort of rose-colored glasses of thinking that everything that we do in our fight for liberation is justified, and maybe he will come back around to the point of we have to maintain our humanity. You know, if we're not human anymore, then what's the point of fighting? Yeah, you know, if we're just becoming monsters ourselves. Oh my God, I can't wait to read these. I cannot wait to read these.
Yeah, holy this is like, all I kept thinking was like, you know, what if Harry Potter had killed Rufus Scrimgeour himself? You know, like that whole thing. Like, because Rufus Scrimgeour does wind up dead, but that's the Death Eaters. And he was very coinish in a lot of respects. Mm-hmm. And yet, a lot of things just sort of happen around Harry. And it's really fun, and I hesitate to use that word, but I'm gonna, to see a much more proactive protagonist who has a lot more power in a specific way. Yeah.
And a protagonist that's willing to do, like, Harry Potter is like Batman, not like Batman. Who is it? Superman. You know, you don't kill anybody. And then you have Batman who's like, yeah, I'll drop you right off this bridge. I don't give a fuck. Yep. You know, when you have
Batman, hero, I think, is technically not supposed to kill people, but like,
oh, that's right. Well, he kills people sometimes, though, right?
I mean,
I feel for certain.
There's a lot of versions of him.
You know, I've seen a Batman. There's Batman murder that's happened.
And then there's also stuff like, you know, if you don't kill people, but you toss them head first down 17 flights of stairs, you kill people. So does it count? But anyway, we're getting all lost in the sauce over here.
Right. Like, maybe you don't shoot people with ray guns, but you do like toss them off a building. So, but yeah, to your point about the Harry Potter thing, like, you know, you can get into that mind frame where like your hero, in order to be innocent and just, can never cross a line. You know? Otherwise they become the bad guy. And there's no like high ground. And Katniss is never really a hero in that particular narrow way, you know? We've seen her. I mean, she shot that woman in that woman's own house.
Yep.
You know,
The
broke
first
into a
book
house
is
and
her
shot
having
somebody.
to kill other kids. Like,
Yep. So
Yeah.
she never had the benefit of maintaining some sort of high ground, some sort of moral high ground, because the nature of her circumstances put her like in the muck from the beginning. You know, it was dirty and murky and complicated from the very, very beginning. Oh, I love this so much. I love this. Oh,
I thought you
so
would.
Good. It's so good. My goodness.
And when you were saying like the one thing that you required from the way the book ended is that she kills Snow, I was like, we'll see how much you stand on that when the time comes, because I feel like even though that isn't how that goes, you're going to be happy about it anyway. So we'll see.
Well, I still want to see that motherfucker dead. Somebody still needs to
That's
kill her.
fair.
But,
yes.
But yeah, I didn't. I'm so glad she shot her. I feel terrible for whatever's about to happen. I don't think it's going to be good. I'm scared for her. But my God, talk about fucking saying no and fucking meaning it. Like saying it with your chest, you know? Absolutely not. We're not doing this anymore. We're not doing this anymore. You're just, you know, you're the new boss, same as the old boss. We're not doing that anymore. Fuck, man. If only that was a real thing, you know? If only that was really how shit went. Instead of the same shit we keep getting over and over and over again, expecting it to be different. Wow. Well, I see why you chose it as a live read.
Yeah, once I realized the last chapter was the one I was live reading, I was like, wait a minute. Oh, no, we can't do that. Like, the conversation with Snow is a great live read option if this weren't the chapter immediately after it.
Right.
Like,
yeah, sure.
That was what I kept running into with this book, is that there are a lot of really shocking moments that I could either live read it because it's shocking, like Prim's death. But that was just so cheap to me. Just like to see you just be upset. Like, that's not satisfying. It's not, there's just nothing happy and enjoyable about that kind of shock for me. And so I really had to sort of figure out the quality of reaction that I was looking for and be very careful, because I was so tempted by a number of moments that I wound up having to sort of steer around and decide on my like absolute number two, like top two favorites. But yeah.
Well,
and the fact that the vote takes place right before is a really good precursor, because you think that's the shocking part. Like, that's the part that you think I'm live reading for. So you let your guard down a little bit, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It just, I mean, it was perfect. It was perfect. My fucking GarageBand stopped. I couldn't even like.
Oh, well, it's fine.
I was too focused. I couldn't even like look at it. My God. I can't believe she shot her. She was right to do it, though. She was right to do it. She was right to do it. This bitch she was no good. She was up to no good. And I hate the idea that there's even a possibility that Snow is playing games, because as far as I'm concerned, even if he is playing games, it doesn't fucking matter, because
at this point,
because Coin was on that bullshit and she earned that.
Yeah.
Whether Snow doesn't matter. Coin earned that.
That's where I come down in the end as well, is just this feeling of like, even if he was manipulating Katniss, Coin proves her character so quickly that ultimately he was right about the way she moves, whether or not this was specifically done the way he frames it. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, guys. That was something else. That's all that was something else.
Oh God, I just love the idea of her shooting coin and then somebody firing an air horn. Coin tumbles off the balcony.
I want to see Coin's face up in the sky. It's like a tribute.
Oh,
her
my
face
God.
up in the sky when they shoot the cannon off.
Yes. Yes.
Another tribute has fallen.
There's one new patron this week, so I just want to say hi to them before we wrap this up. Thank you very much to Hannah for becoming a patron. Appreciate you so much. Really hope that you are enjoying the coverage.
Welcome.
And definitely welcome. Hope you come to the Discord and whatnot. And I also wanted to mention that my thought was after we finish the book, we watch the movies and do one per week.
Oh, you want to do the
think?
movies?
Yeah. I feel like people are going to want to know how you feel about them. Finish the series. So,
yep. There's some things I'd like to see. Some things I've been warned are very underwhelming, but I've also heard there's some really beautiful bits in the movies. I think it'd be fun to watch. I hope that we said at the very beginning when we started recording on the first book that I had tried to watch the movie. I was bored to tears. I never made it off the train.
Yeah.
But I will power through. Now that I have the books under my belt, I think it'll make watching it a little bit easier. I hope that they are more entertaining than they seemed when I tried to watch them initially because
I'll be real interested because I haven't revisited them, but I remember them being, I remember the first movie being downright boring to me. The second one, movie, I don't remember. And the third one, I am not positive I ever saw.
I think it was Jamie said that she watched them recently and they weren't as bad as she remembered. I might have the wrong person, but I'm pretty sure it was Jamie.
I think that was Jamie. Yeah.
So I'd be very curious to see. I know the bits that you share with me have always been things that like where the movie failed. So I will say I'm very, very curious to see the spectacle of the Capitol on the screen because it's just so over the top in the book. I'd like to see some of that brought to life. I hope that, because it's a lot to dig into if you're making a movie. I mean, the book, when you talk about the Capitol and the people in the Capitol, I mean, you could just go ham. So I'm hoping that the movie leans into that aspect and gives me some real spectacle. So I'll be looking for that. I'm also very curious with the fucking, what do you call it? The love triangle. Look how that plays out. Like, do they really lean into it and make it like much more of a thing than it is in the books? Because
I really can't remember.
Yeah. So I'm into it. We'll watch the movies.
All right. I don't even remember where they're streaming, but that changes like every day. So
it really does.
I need to when we're closer.
All of my shit off too. I need to cancel all that shit. In this economy, so I can't afford to watch television.
Right. I just went and canceled so many things recently. And there's also just a handful of titles that just got removed from like Paramount Plus or something that are big name titles. And I don't remember what they were, but like I just got to start buying stuff too, like to actually have it, not just digitally, because this is silly. They're just fucking with us now.
Physical copies are like coming back. Like me and Steve were talking about. I forget what happened. Something happened. Maybe our internet was out or something, and he was like, "Time to dig the DVDs out." Like I think that might be where I'm going. Like for a while, we had stopped having cable. This is years ago. We didn't have cable for a couple years. And all we did was buy like DVDs on half.com of like every sitcom that we loved and had like entire series of like 7 different sitcoms. Yeah, that's coming back in fashion because this shit is outrageous. It's out. And I
also really miss I miss the extra like content that's like, you know, behind the scenes or director commentary or
the commentary,
you know, like
The
I love that
commentary on the DVDs you get for TV shows is so fun. Like the commentary on The Simpsons is like a fucking unmatched.
Oh man,
it's so good. It's so good.
I don't know if I've ever watched that. I don't know if Owen has either. I have to mention that to him.
If you have the DVDs, they all came with
he does.
commentary.
All right, noted.
So good. It's so good. But
one of my favorites was watching Lord of the Rings with the commentary, because they have like different ones, obviously, with some of the actors. And when you listen to the one with Orlando Bloom, he is just fangirling so hard over the actors that he got to work with and how much he loves these books and the location and how beautiful it was. And just like everything that he talks about is just like, oh, he was so incredible. Like his acting. Oh my God. He had me in tears. Like he is just so generous and delighted with everything. And it was just so much fun to listen to him.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
I think I have those on DVD too. I bought those for Steve one year for Christmas, the box set.
Check that out.
The Rings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
all right.
This was fun.
It was a little draining emotionally, but nevertheless, I feel like the payoff is worth it. So, all right, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed this, and I'm really looking forward to talking with you about the final chapter and epilogue next week.
I don't know.
I can't believe we're already here.
Already here.
Until next time. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Are you coming to the tree where dead man called out for his love to flee? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.